Hello, I'm Brian, and welcome to my dumb kitchen. It's a real place, and it's the cooking show that says, if I can make it in my dumb kitchen, you can make it in yours. Today's show should really be called My Ridiculous Kitchen, because today I'm going to show you how to make tofu at home, which is a little ridiculous. Having said that, there's a couple reasons why I do sometimes make tofu at home and why I encourage you to do so as well. First of all, making tofu at home is a relatively easy process that allows you to avoid lots of additives and so on. And it demonstrates that tofu itself is actually a very simple product. The way that I'm going to show you how to make it, the way that I make it, it involves literally 3 ingredients. Dried soybeans, water, which arguably doesn't even count as an ingredient, and one of these 2 ingredients, cider vinegar or lemon juice from a lemon. The lemon juice or the cider vinegar is going to coagulate the curds out of the soy milk, and it's those curds that then become tofu when you press them together. The other reason to make tofu at home is that if you buy it in the store, it's very packaged, right? This allows you to basically avoid that packaging, and it allows you to avoid whatever additives may be in commercially made tofu. Okay, so we talked about the simple ingredients that you're going to need. Now I'm going to talk about the equipment that you need. First, I'm going to talk about the least equipment, the most minimal setup, and then I'll talk about what the preferred setup is, which is what I've moved to after making it a couple times with the minimal setup. So you're definitely going to need a blender if you make your own soy milk, which I am here. You could buy commercial soy milk and then coagulate it. That'd be fine. It would not have the same benefits as doing it all from dried soybeans. You would have whatever ingredients are in the soy milk, and you'd have the packaging that's in the soy milk. So for me, there's just not enough upside to making it with commercial soy milk. So we're going to need a blender in order to make the soy milk. We're going to need a 1 or 2 finely woven towels. These are called flour sack towels, and they're made out of unbleached cotton, and I have a bunch of these. You're going to need them to strain the pulp out of the blended soybeans to make the soy milk, and then you're going to need it after you cook the soy milk in order to strain out the curds. So you might need 2 of these. And then you're going to need a pot, and you're going to need it because there are 2 cooking stages. So stage 1 is cooking the soy milk, and that takes quite a while, and if you do it in a pot like this, it's a fair amount of hands-on time because in theory you stir it in order to avoid a skin from forming. I've never actually cooked the soy milk this way, and I actually believe you could probably not even worry about there being a skin because ultimately you're going to be coagulating it, so who cares? But most instructions say to stir it to avoid it from forming a skin. So you stir it for a while and you cook it, and you do that to reduce the sort of beany flavor. That's why you cook the soy milk. And then after the soy milk is cooked, you would then coagulate the soy milk. And you can do that, you could do that in the same pot. And you could probably do it right one after another. So cook it and then coagulate. I don't see why not. Again, this is not exactly how I do it, so I can't say for sure. Alright, so this is my preferred setup. So we still need the blender for making the soy milk. Then, however, I like to use a nut milk bag in order to strain the pulp out to get the soy milk. So this is a nut milk bag that I got on Amazon. It's made out of nylon. And basically, it just is a little bit easier to use than a cloth towel. But there's nothing wrong with using a cloth towel. The other thing that I use is I cook it in the Instant Pot rather than on the stove. So I'm going to make the soy milk and then I'm going to cook it. And the reason I cook it in the Instant Pot rather than on the stove is that that can be hands-off. And so to do that, I need these other 2 pieces of equipment. I need this trivet, which is going to sit in the Instant Pot like that. And then I need this glass container, which is going to hold the soy milk. And I'm going to put the soy milk in this glass container. I'm going to put that in the Instant Pot, and then I'm going to cook that, pressure cook that in the Instant Pot. And I'm not going to have to stir it or anything. It's just hands off. And that will cook the soy milk for me very simply. All right, and then the next thing is that for forming the tofu, again, you can form it in a cloth towel. It will just be a little bit like it'll be like a blob. If you want something that's more square and that's definitely easier to press, I use this tofu mold, which I got on Amazon, and it is a plastic tofu, plastic rectangular box that comes with a relatively fine mesh cloth towel that goes inside of it. And I'll show you later how I use this, but basically that's how you press your tofu. And it makes a much more compact kind of thing. It's easier to use. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, Brian, if the point is to avoid the plastic packaging, isn't it contrary to that point to be using a nylon mesh bag and a plastic tofu mold? And the answer is kind of. However, having said that, I'm going to reuse this over and over again. And so I think probably ultimately the amount of plastic that I'm using here is less than the amount of plastic that I would be using for the equivalent amount of tofu that I'm consuming. If I'm only making it a couple of times, then yes, just use cloth. Don't buy one of these. And similarly with the nut milk bag, I'm going to use this over and over. And I don't feel 100% great about it, but I got it a while ago before I was as concerned about plastic. And so I was a more terrible person when I bought it, and now I have it. So I might as well use it. So today, would I buy it again? Probably, but I would feel a little bad about it. All right, so step one is actually a step that I already completed, which is soaking the soybeans overnight in water. And I start with 1 cup of dried soybeans. That's how much I use in this recipe. I really don't measure anything else. In my dumb kitchen, we try not to measure. So I'm going to use these soybeans. These are soybeans that I soaked overnight, and then I rinsed. One little aside I'll mention about soaking the beans is that you only need to soak them overnight. If you happen to end up leaving them out for an extra day or so, they will probably start getting like some white kind of foamy stuff on top of the liquid. And unless it smells foul, which it shouldn't, particularly if it's just been a day, that's nothing to worry about. That is just some bubbles that are being produced by lactic acid bacteria, the same bacteria that give us sauerkraut and yogurt and kombucha, etc. So there's some of those bacteria exist here, and they will produce a little bit of gas, which will produce some bubbles in the liquid, which again, nothing to worry about. You don't need to throw your beans out unless it smells foul, which it won't if it's just been an extra day. If it's been 3, 4, or 5 days, all bets are off. I'm not a doctor. Do your thing. So I'm going to take these soaked soybeans and put them in my blender. Don't do it that way. Yeah. Now I'm going to add about 1 quart of water. Could be a little more, a little less, not that important. And I am just going to blend this and then strain it. All right, I blended that for probably about a minute. Depending on the strength of your blender, you might need longer, you might need less. That's probably fine. So if I were using a cloth towel, as I mentioned before, I would just take the cloth towel, put it in a pot that is big enough for it, pour it through here, and then you can just bring the corners of this up and basically just squeeze it out and so on. I'm not doing that. It's time consuming, it's messy. It's harder than using a nut milk bag, so I'm not going to do that, but that's how you would do it. So with a nut milk bag, quite a bit easier. You're still going to want a pot, like a big pot that you can drain into. I'm just going to put a little bit more water in here just to rinse out. Try to get the rest of the pulp out of there. All right, and so now I just need to strain this by squeezing the bag. This will take a while. If you squeeze too aggressively, it'll start spraying around, so you're just gonna get a feel for this. Wash your hands before you do. Of course, you should be washing your hands all the time nowadays. I did wash my hands. And probably I'm the only person eating this, so does that sound sad? It's not really sad. Okay, it's a little sad. All right, so that took however long it took. Pretty messy. Didn't make too bad a mess on the table here. I'm going to clean up a little bit. All right, so as I mentioned before, I like to cook the soy milk in the Instant Pot because it's entirely hands-off. So I've got this trivet, which is going to hold this Pyrex container. And I've got my soy milk, and I'm just going to pour that in there and cook it in the Instant Pot for 40 minutes. When I say cook it in the Instant Pot, to be clear, I'm talking about pressure steaming it while it's in that trivet. So I have to put some water in the Instant Pot. I can't just put that in the Instant Pot. That would be a no-no. I put about 1.5 cups in there, just enough to come up toward the bottom of the trivet. Drop the trivet in there. Make sure it's locked. Pressure cook for, I said, 40 minutes, which is probably longer than necessary, but it doesn't hurt. Turning off the keep warm function because I don't need it. So it's going to be over an hour plus before this is ready, and meanwhile, I will clean up. Meanwhile, I will tell you that I am going to clean up.
So this is what my soy milk looks like coming out of the Instant Pot. Pretty darn coagulated, would not make very good soy milk, but it is going to make excellent tofu. All right, so as you can see, I've poured this into a big pot here, and you can see that it's already there's a lot of solids in there. In other words, a lot of the protein has already curdled out, and so there's not going to be as much work for us to do to get it fully cooked and ready. The way that we know, however, that it's not fully ready is that the liquid that is in there among the curds is kind of cloudy. So as long as it's cloudy, that means that the protein has not precipitated out. So what we're going to do is I've heated this, I've turned on a medium flame under there, and we're going to get this till it's simmering. Then I'm going to add the lemon juice, which I'm using frozen lemon cubes. I'm going to add that. So I'm adding 2 cubes of frozen pureed lemon. You could just use lemon juice, or you could use cider vinegar. You need about 2 tablespoons. You know you need more if, after you've cooked it for a little while, the liquid is still cloudy. Once it's clear, you know that you've used enough curdling agent. So I can see it's starting to bubble right now, and it has a lot of solids, and so I need to stir it so that it doesn't burn. I do want to stir it gently because ideally, the larger the curds are, the better. It'll form a more solid mass. This particular recipe actually doesn't make very solid tofu. I don't know how to make it really hold together, so it kind of is crumbly when you cook with it, but it still tastes like tofu, which is to say it tastes like nothing, and is incredibly good for you, as soy products are. I'll probably put some links to information about soy products below. I might even do a whole video about the values of soy products in your diet, because there is so much misinformation out in the universe, and we are all about combating misinformation, particularly nutritional misinformation. Looks to me like the liquid is actually starting to clear up already. So this looks done to me. It's still a little bit cloudy, but if you look out at the edges, you can see that it's pretty clear out there. So to the extent that it's cloudy, I think it's just little particles that are running around. And I think that all of the protein in there has been coagulated and precipitated out. So I'm turning this off, and I'm going to let it cool before I pour it into the mold, and then squeeze it and press it and refrigerate it. You can see now that it has had a chance to cool down and settle that it really is, the liquid really is essentially totally clear. And you can see the curds kind of range in size. And we're going to process these by dumping it into our little tofu mold and folding that cloth over, and then putting this top on here so that we can press it. So my tofu has been in the fridge overnight under a weight, and we're going to take it out and see what it looks like. So interestingly enough, I apparently didn't really need to do this. I must have pressed it aggressively enough yesterday just before putting the weight on it, because if we take a look at this container that it was sitting in, literally nothing has dripped out of it. So this one probably didn't need to be pressed any further. It did still benefit from the refrigeration because that's going to make it a little bit more solid. So we are now going to take this apart and see what it looks like. So you can see it's very compact, and as I take the cloth off, it mostly stays together. Now you can see that it is, you can see the pores, kind of where the curds are, where there were individual curds. And you can see how some of the curds kind of broke off there into little granules. And the fact is, this tofu is going to basically break up when you cook it. I don't know how commercial tofu is made so that it can be cut into chunks as opposed to crumbling. Probably it's through additives, which is the one of the whole reasons for doing this is to avoid those additives. So it's going to be crumbly when you cook with it, but it's still going to be delicious and good for you. And now I'm going to take this and put it right back in this container. See, it does hold together for now. Put it right back in that container. I'm going to put these little stray bits in there too. And then this cloth can just rinse off. It's just a piece of cotton. I don't use soap on it just because then I don't have to worry about rinsing it out. Typically I will want to use this within 3 days, and if I'm not going to do that, I will just put it in the freezer again, basically just like this in this container. And you can cook with this any way you would normal tofu. You know what? Let's find out exactly how much we have here, just for fun. So now I'm going to tear this scale here, zero it out, and looks like 295 or 296 or 7. So close to 300 grams of tofu, which do the math for you imperial unit lovers. All right, that's it. Enjoy. Like and subscribe.